We're going to bring y'all into our huddle.
Today's Monday, September 16th, 2013, and you are in the NBA Huddle with me, Bram, and with me as always, my boy and producer, Scott.
Scott here.
Scott, it's been a long time, huh?
It has been. Right after we talked about how we're going to get consistent, we just completely disappear.
I wanted to blame this on you. I wasn't sure how. I mean, I've had like 3 weeks to somehow come up with some reason why this was your fault, but so far I've got nothing.
That is very surprising.
Yeah, well, go fuck yourself. I still think it's your fault. Well, one of the upsides of taking so long to come out with another episode is that, we got big things to talk about, man. We're going to go all Warriors today, and in that Warriors update, we're going to give a quick talk on our boy Fredo Curry and go through a recent phone interview he gave on Kron, Channel 4, one that shows once again that Gary Radnich has been doing the sports radio thing for so long, he no longer has to give a single fuck about what he says. We'll also go through a few quotes that Andrew Bogut recently provided to the media in an interview that I absolutely loved, and that is honestly probably the best interview I've ever heard as a Warriors fan. He just touches on everything I wanted to hear him say. And then finally, in a triumphant return to one of our favorite segments, we're going to go back to story time with Adonal Foyle, and this time have him answer the question, who was the hardest person he's ever had to guard in the NBA. But first, man, a little bit of housekeeping. Let's get the sponsorship out of the way. You guys know it. I'm tired of saying it. Uber is, in fact, our lone sponsor. We'll go quick version. If you're hammered, don't feel like looking for a cab, press a button. They'll come to you.
You love the tagline.
Yeah, I mean, did you think I forced it there, or did you feel like that was pretty clean and straightforward? What'd you think?
Very clean, very straightforward. Good job.
Hey, thanks, man. Thanks. I was hoping you were going to say good twice there. I got all fired up for your tagline, but I guess you didn't want to go that route.
No.
Second thing, equally as exciting news, man. We got an intern. It makes us seem ridiculously legitimate. The guy's name is Robert. Apparently, he hasn't come in yet, but he's expected next week.
Yes, he's expected next week. We'll see. Going to meet with him later this week and hoping for big things from our boy Robert.
Robert, the intern, baby. Now, my understanding is he's going to be doing most of the production work.
Yeah, we're going to talk to him about trying to do some producing, some editing, really bring him under the wing of super producer.
So if he starts doing that shit, do I still have to call you the producer, or do I call Robert the intern producer? I wasn't really sure how we're going to handle that.
You could call me executive producer.
I'm not calling you executive fucking producer. If Robert starts doing all this, I'm just going to limit it as my boy. Sound fair?
Nope.
No?
I'm lobbying hard for this executive producer title.
I mean, I'm going to say complete, but we'll see what the hell he does.
It's still my equipment. I get nothing, no credit for that.
I'll tell you what, we'll go Scotty the equipment owner. How's that sound?
Equipment manager?
Manager, that's fine. There you go. Hit a happy medium. It'll be Robert the producer intern and Scotty the equipment manager. One last piece of housekeeping. This is an actual housekeeping issue. Last episode, we talked quickly about who you'd prefer, Steph or James Harden. We talked about different ways to look at it, but I realized one of the things we didn't touch on is the difference between contracts. I mean, you can argue about these guys' skill set, who would fit in better with what teams, but one thing remains absolutely unquestioned. Steph's contract is ridiculously better. Looked it up. Steph's contract is at 4 years, $44 million. Harden is 5 years, $78 million. There is absolutely no question that Steph's contract is not only better, but it's certainly a guy you'd want to build around.
Yeah, I mean, framed in the perspective of contracts, definitely you would choose Steph Curry. And I think you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone who disagreed with that. But I don't like talking contracts. I like talking about who I'd prefer to have on my team. Much more enjoyable.
No, well, that I agree with, but since we already covered that fucking angle the first time we talked about it, I figured we should at least cover the contract angle this side.
Yeah, I didn't like the contract angle. I hate that focus on contracts.
Did you want to talk about the contract angle again?
No, we'll move on.
Do you ever listen to sports radio?
No.
No. Okay, well, let me give you a quick tip here. When they have two people on sports radio, one person brings up a topic, the other person doesn't go, wow, I hate this topic. This sucks. Let's move beyond it.
I'm not saying I hate the topic or I don't understand why it needs to be discussed, but I personally dislike talking so much and focusing on contracts when it comes down to whether or not you trade a player or whether or not you'd sign this one versus another. I understand it must be discussed, and I'm willing to discuss it. I'm just bringing up my personal preference.
You just dislike it?
dislike.
Yeah, that's another thing that the other fucking hosts on sports radio does not say, I dislike this topic, but at least point it out. We're growing together here. Let's see how this turns out.
That's why we're different than sports radio.
So true. Let's move on, man. Let's get into the Warriors update, and let's talk a little bit of Fredo Curry action. We talked about him, I think it was the last episode. The Warriors signed Seth Curry, Stephen Curry's younger brother, gave him a basically nothing contract. There's no guaranteed money. It's just a training camp invite. We weren't so happy with the actual signing. It looks like ESPN is on our side. They just did that ESPN player ranking thing. And out of 500, Fredo Curry ranked 483 on ESPN's list. So he is not exactly the best or brightest player, although he did beat a couple of people who I've never heard about, including Josh Ogignon, who plays for
Never heard of him.
Memphis Grizzlies. How about Jarrell McNeil?
These are people actually who are on teams right now?
Yeah, no. Jarrell McNeil is apparently a member of the Jazz. Robert Covington, a Rocket. Romero Osby, great name, apparently plays for the Orlando Magic. These are the caliber player that Seth Curry is apparently better than.
Wow, I've never heard of any of those guys. I can't believe they're actually on teams. But I also will bring up, I think Kent Bazemore was ranked 499 by that ESPN list. So I'm not sure how much validity that list holds.
Absolutely right. And he also used that as a big force of motivation, right? Didn't Bazemore put 499 on one of his shoes for the Summer League and constantly referred to it as, these guys only thought I was the second worst player in the NBA and then turned it into something.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see what Fredo Curry does with this.
Hey, baby, he's already 12 spots better than what they thought our boy Bazemore was. But that's not the only reason I'm bringing up Fredo. He also gave this great interview on Kron. I don't want to build it up too much. Let's just jump to it. Here is Fredo and our boy Gary Radnich.
Ever beat your brother, your big brother, one-on-one?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, seriously now?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Yeah? You got any video on that?
I don't. I wish. But, I mean, we have good competitive one-on-one games. We work
That's
out
cool.
all the time in the summer, so it's fun.
I asked your brother this a couple years ago, and I mean this obviously as a compliment. Have anybody else told you have the most attractive mother in the NBA?
I hear it all the time.
Yeah.
Especially in the locker room.
Yeah.
I hear it all the time.
Oh my gosh. He must be drunk in that. He must be, right?
I mean, if he's not drunk, he has just been doing this for so long. In fact, let's put it a different way. I got a friend who's a college professor, finally just reached tenure. And he said, now that you got tenure, you don't have to worry about shit. If he went in there, taught a class with no pants on, he would never get fired. I think Gary Radnich must have reached that point where he's got tenure at Cron and 680. I mean...
Wow. I mean, that is vicious on both questions, really.
Exactly right. Let's take them one by one. The first portion where he asks them kind of off the cuff, have you ever beaten your brother? He says yes. And then Radnich goes, wait a minute. Do you have any film on that? That is such a savage ass, I don't think you're telling the truth quote. I mean, that is badass.
And Fredo's response actually was a little suspect. He
Yeah.
kind of hesitated like, yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't. Do you believe that he's ever beaten his brother?
I don't think that he's beating his brother. If he did, there was some technicalities involved in that win. Like, mom called them into dinner, and they were supposed to play to 11. He was up 7-6. They had to end the game.
Didn't respect a foul call or something. I think if it happened when they were both like 5 years old, or 5 and like 8 years old, or something like that. Seth
On a Nerf hoop.
Yeah, exactly right. No dribbling, no fouls. They just let him do whatever the hell it was, and there was apparently no cameras either, which is unfortunate. But let's not bury the second question. Can you think of any time, any public interview where it's okay to point out, hey, I think your mom is hot?
It's never okay to talk about anyone's mom, okay? And definitely not in a public radio interview. And then definitely not talking about her being hot.
Fredo took it pretty well.
He took it very well, and I've never seen his mom, actually.
I've seen pictures. She's hot.
Okay.
Yeah, no, she's definitely hot.
I guess it probably is something he deals with, so maybe this wasn't really the first time it's been asked. But would you go back on that show ever again?
If you're Seth Curry, fuck yes. If I'm Seth Curry and a homeless man asked to interview me, I'd go on there as many times as they'd possibly want me. And not only did he say he was used to it, but he pointed out, yeah, I hear that in the locker room all the time. That must be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's one thing in the locker room because you're around teammates, people you can give it back to them.
That's the culture.
Yeah, but is Fredo Curry going to start talking about Radnich's mom on the show? That would be inappropriate.
Yeah, if he had any confidence, if he was not the 487th ranked player in ESPN's rankings, I bet you he would have gone a little bit more aggressive with his comeback there. He doesn't have that power, so it is what it is.
Well, maybe Steph Curry can come and I don't know. Like if I was Stephen Curry and I heard this, I'd be going at Radnich.
Only thing more fucking embarrassing for Fredo Curry than getting punked by Radnich on this show would be if his bigger brother had to come in and help him out afterwards. We don't have to spend too much time, but I will say I'm willing to bet any amount of money that somewhere right now Delonte West is calling all of his contacts to make sure he gets a chance to meet both Fredo and Seth's mother. All right, let's move on and let's go to another interview that just recently came out featuring Andrew Bogut. I guess all the players are starting to spill back into Oakland now that training camp is just around the corner. I think we're only like 30 days away, man.
Yeah, it's coming up. Thank God.
Oh, my God. That's maybe we won't have to do segments on Seth Curry and his hot-ass mom. But nonetheless, one of the people who's come back in is Bogut. He appeared with the media. He gave a sequence of quotes, just like I said in the opening, pretty much touching on everything I'd want to hear from this guy. Let's start here. Here's Bogut talking about how his ankle is back to 100%.
You seem like you're walking a lot better than you were at the end of the playoffs. Do you feel better? Or are you 100%?
Yeah, 100% better, yeah. The playoffs was a big struggle for me just to get through the season, and my tank was I think the needle snapped off past empty towards that Spurs series. Just try to push through it, and I feel 110%. This is the best I've felt since I broke my ankle. I've had no restrictions since July of this year. I've played 5-on-5 in Australia, some open gyms. I've played 5-on-5 this whole week here. I've done all the workouts, done all the weight sessions, haven't been restricted with anything I've done. So I'm very excited to come back here in good nick. I mean, you look at my ankle right now, and feel free to take photos if you want.
All right, that quote does a couple of things for me. Let's get the pseudo-good, kind of bad one out of the way. It confirms at the end of last year when they lost to San Antonio and we kind of got over the depression of the big playoff season and finally come to an end. I said that maybe it's good it ended when it did. It looked like we were running on gas, or out of gas, rather. This quote pretty much backs that idea. It sounds like he had nothing left. I think the quote he used was it snapped the needle. I think that if that season had kept going, Bogut could have risked permanent injury, and it's one of the unintended upsides of losing to the Spurs when we did. He had nothing. I'm glad we didn't force him to go through it.
I think that you're right, and I think it really came down to the Warriors they hit empty,
yeah.
And it's part of the process, learning how much deeper into the playoffs you go, that it's a longer season, and you got to do things earlier on in the season to get yourself prepared now as a team that actually is going to have that extra month or two of the season.
Kind of that Popovich move.
Yeah, it's not going to end where you're used to having it end.
Right. Well, the other side of that is, sure, he was all fucked up at the end of last year, but now apparently has come back in, and after starting the last couple of years with injury concerns, both elbow and ankle, he's now 100%. And it sounds like he is in for a huge season and is ready for big things.
He's in for a huge season if he doesn't re-injure the ankle. Yeah. So it's great that it's 100%, and even if he rolls it a little bit, hopefully that means he can recover a lot faster. But everyone's just one step away from rolling that ankle again. So, yeah, he's 100% now. Hopefully it stays that way.
Yeah, I mean, we can.
Yeah, I'm not sure I believe anything this guy says or anything the Warriors put out about injuries, because they have proven themselves to be very, very non-trustworthy when it comes to injuries.
I disagree with that. What they've been is super tight-lipped. When we had no real idea what the hell his condition was. He didn't come out and say anything about how bad it was or how good it was last year. This year, we're actually getting some positive information. Maybe he's blowing smoke up our ass. I don't think so. I think he's being legit. I'm going to focus on the optimism. If, in fact, he is right, we can take him for his word, and I'm going to. I think this really foretells for a phenomenal season. There is a lot of arguments that can be made that Bogut could be our MVP. Naturally, we need Curry healthy. Naturally, he is our surefire stud and the face of the franchise. But when push comes to shove, it was Bogut who pushed us to that next level when the playoffs began. It was Bogut who made us a defensive, intimidating team, and it's going to be Bogut who pushes us to contender status.
MVP, so basically that sounds more like just the main X factor, as opposed to MVP.
Do you disagree with it being MVP?
Yeah, good job of reading what I was saying there.
I just wanted to make sure that you said it because I got a perfect quote here from Bob Myers, the GM, describing why Bogut is, in fact, the MVP. Here's Myers.
If you can keep Andrew Bogut healthy for 65 to 70 games, how good, what is the ceiling for this Golden State team?
Well, Sam, I think maybe it's your coaching acumen coming through. You know how important that guy is. I mean, a lot of fans and perhaps media don't really comprehend the amount of the importance that he brings to this team of ours. He really is the linchpin to our success. And the reason I think we had success in the playoffs last year was because of Bogut. I think we beat Denver because of Bogut, and we were in the hunt in San Antonio because of Bogut. He's one of the smartest big men in the league. He's got a little nasty edge to him. He's a paint protector, which, as you know, in the playoffs takes on a whole new level of importance. So Bogut, for us, arguably could have been our MVP. I know Curry got all the attention, and he was great as well. But without Andrew Bogut setting the screens to free him up, making some of these passes, protecting the paint, we're not in those games. So I think the key to our season going into next year largely depends on Bogut's health. And really, if he's healthy, I think we got a good chance to do well. Hopefully he is. I think he deserves it. He's put in all the time. He's put in all the work. No player wants to be injured as much as he has been. So we're hopeful he'll come back healthy. We have every reason to believe he will.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear him. Did he say MVP? I tuned out there for a second. Would you mind recasting that quote for me?
Was your question, is Bob Myers going to say that Andrew Bogut could be the MVP? Because if that was the question, then I would say, yeah, you probably have loaded up a sound clip. But
no, I feel like you may have misunderstood what my question was right there. In fact, you're going back to, just to make sure right here, what Bob Myers just said, the GM of the Warriors. He did just point him out as the MVP?
He said he could arguably be the MVP. Yeah, exactly, which doesn't mean that he's correct.
No, it doesn't, but we can agree that I'm sure Myers spends more time watching the team than either you and I do combined.
I don't know that.
You will, since you actually don't watch most of the games. We can
That's not true at all.
We can at least see that Myers definitely watches more of the Warriors than you do.
I would assume that that's the case, but I don't know that. Okay. I don't know that.
And we can probably
He's got a busy life.
He knows more about basketball than either of us do, since he was hired to be a GM.
That's definitely not true.
Definitely not true. You don't think so either.
I don't. I will argue that one till the death.
Oh, I just want to make sure then. You may or may not have watched more of the Warriors than the current Warriors GM, and you may or may not know more basketball, or at least about it, than the current GM as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And you probably make a better coach at Rutgers than he would.
You knew where I was going.
I could see where it's going. Well, way to stick to your guns. I'm going to go ahead and say filthy, complete bullshit. This guy knows what the fuck he's talking about, and Bogut absolutely can be considered our MVP.
I don't care. This guy's question. I mean, what's he going to say in response to a question about Bogut? He's going to praise Bogut. He's going to talk about good things that Bogut did. So this is not a surprising response from Bob Myers.
The MVP portion is he's going to say he's super important to us and we're better with him, but he doesn't have to use the fucking phrase MVP or those three letters.
He could have said that about a lot of players. Basically, just plugging in that same equation was, look, Steph Curry is our best player, but these other people stepped up and did things that allowed us to succeed and allowed Steph Curry to do well. You could have said that about additional Warriors players.
Key word in that statement is could have. You're right. But
he was being asked a question about Bogut.
But he didn't say MVP about anyone else. I'll tell you what, the internet is open to you. If you can come back in this next podcast and show me another quote where Myers says this guy could have been our MVP, then perhaps you're right. For now, the overwhelming evidence is on my side.
What evidence of what, though?
What are you talking about? That Bob Myers considers him a fucking possible MVP candidate.
That's undisputed.
Okay.
He just said
Jesus
it.
Christ.
All I'm saying is, like, that was a question that was given to him and about Bogut, and so he's going to say good things about Bogut. We don't know about the rest of the interview. Maybe he's asked about how Carl Landry did, and he said, well, in the playoffs, he could have arguably been our MVP.
I'll put this differently. Right now, there are three people involved in this conversation. Me, you, and tangentially Bob Myers. Two of those people believe that Bogut can be considered an MVP of the Warriors. Are we right there?
I'm not really sure where you're going.
My God. What I'm going with it is that your suggestion that he is not considered an MVP goes against one of the people who knows the most about the Warriors.
Did I really say that he couldn't be considered as an MVP?
Well, let me ask you now. Can he be considered an MVP of the Warriors?
No.
Okay, well then there you go. Yes, said it or not. That's exactly what the hell you're intimating.
Steph Curry is the MVP of the Warriors.
Oh my God. Do I have to play that fucking quote again?
He said he could arguably be the MVP, but...
And then specifically discounted Curry. Well, obviously we're going to disagree on here. Point being is that regardless if you use the letters MVP, Bogut is an unbelievable important part to this franchise, one that the GM Myers appreciates even if you don't.
Yep. I definitely, Bogut's good, and and is a great piece to the Warriors. They need him to succeed.
Yeah, well, fair enough. Myers isn't just happy with Bogut. Turns out Bogut is crazy happy to be here as well. Here's the last quote I wanted to play from that interview. Another ridiculously encouraging thing to hear from a franchise MVP type player.
California's just one of the nicest places in the world to live, especially where I am. I mean, the sun's shining every day. I love living here. The organization, you can't say anything bad about the organization. It's first class. Everything that I heard before I got here is obviously in the past was pretty bad. There wasn't a lot of people that had complimentary things to say about the Warriors, going back 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, whatever it was. Since I've got here, it's been a first class organization. The owners have put an onus on making sure that everyone's looked after, everyone does the right thing, everyone works hard in return. The trainers, the weight room, one of the nicest facilities in the league, in my opinion. We've got food everywhere. They just feed us. Masseuses. What more do you want? So I'd love to be here long term, but as I said, that'll run its due course. Time will take care of that.
You gotta love his attitude and appreciation for what he has around him. Anytime an NBA player shows that type of appreciation, it's a refreshing. The fact that he even mentioned the food. I mean, this is a multi-millionaire. This guy can buy whatever meal he wants. He still gets a kick and a joy out of free food, which is something that I really have a deep love for, because anytime I can get free food, no matter how much food I've already had that day, it's just a real great moment.
You entertained the shit out of me, Scotty. I picked up a lot of things from that quote, none of which were food related. Before I talk about what I like, let's set up the kind of precursor to these quotes. Going into this year, we had a guy who, one, had a bunch of injury concerns, two, had to do with the fact that the franchise who just traded for him and praised him made a big move towards Dwight Howard. I mean, basically told him that we like you, but not as much as somebody else. And then finally, three is coming into this year with a lot of contract questions. If he goes throughout the entire year without any negotiations, he's a lame duck. His contract comes up at the end of the year. Now, those three are all uncertainties. He came in and addressed all of them. One, he's 100% better, at least as of right now. Phenomenal. Check. Two, and we didn't play this portion, but it was kind of obvious with that last quote he gave, the Dwight Howard stuff didn't bother him at all. What he says in a different portion of the interview is that they've got to kick the tires on someone as good as Dwight, but he never thought that it threatened his position on the Warriors at all. And then finally, three, despite hearing them go after somebody else, he comes in and says, not only do I not care about that, not only do I love it here in the Bay Area, but finally, my contract thing isn't bothering me.
And the food is great.
And he mentioned the food, they're just eating us everywhere. So he gave us kind of a bonus for it. But that's why I was saying, at least as far as a Warriors fan's concerned, this interview was phenomenal. I mean, I wanted to hear all of these little boxes get checked, and he did them one after another. Now, if he had given us an opinion on how hot Fredo Curry's mother was, then it kind of would have hit for the cycle. But you can't have the perfect interview all the time. You know what I mean?
Absolutely not. And this is definitely checked. The boxes have been checked.
Yeah.
He gives a great interview.
Yeah. I can tell you don't really give a fuck about these Bogut quotes, huh?
I'm very much over these Bogut quotes.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're doing a really good job at least participating, but
I start off the answer with a lot of energy, and by the end of the sentence, I'm just exhausted by having to keep expending effort talking about Bogut.
I was like just blatantly staring at the ceiling during this last one, just not caring at all. Like, my God, this is crazy boring.
I just want training camp to start and the season to get underway so we can get something real to talk about. These interview answers, they're just so boring.
Right around the corner, baby. Right around the corner.
Or I want to listen to only Gary Radnich interviews from here on out.
No doubt. Or listen to anybody who has a two-man booth so you can stop pointing out how fucking boring things are. Although that one is my fault, so I won't blame you for it. Well, hopefully you'll enjoy this segment. It's a return to something we used to really enjoy. Now, we had been holding back.
I will enjoy it. This is a good segment.
Yeah,
this is one I'm fired up for.
There you go. Story time with Adonal Foyle. We were holding back for when Graham ultimately made his return to the show. We're not sure when the fuck that's going to happen, so we got to come right back out.
Graham?
I mean, I told you.
Everybody wants to know.
I don't know if everybody wants to know.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think it's just you want to know, and I'm telling you, I don't think we're going to see him again. But that's not important. What is important is the following interview he took with Adonal Foyle, just to set the stage again a couple of months back. Graham sat down with Warrior great Adonal Foyle, got a bunch of stories from him, and here's one of them.
Who was the toughest player you had to play against, where the next day you would go, man, that was that was hard.
Well, there was a few of them, but I mean, when you're undersized center as I was, every player that come in was taller than me or stronger than me. Did everything better than me. In many instances. So, but the one that was very difficult was Shaq because he was big, he was quick, So I mean, you spend 30 minutes, bumping on a nightly basis, much as 45. I mean, you're gonna be exhausted. So I remember just. After those games, not being able to walk, my knees was like in spasm, my back was killing me. So when you play Amari, it was a different challenge because he can dunk. He was like quick. He was kind of like a center, playing as a forward, playing as a three. I mean, he can do everything. And then you have like Tim Duncan, that is the ultimate crafty veteran that could he can take you outside, he can bring you inside, he can go left, he can go right. So there was a lot of challenges on a nightly basis.
I honestly cannot get enough of Adonal's voice.
Oh, what a great character.
I mean, it's just absolutely perfect. You can tell that he's probably a storyteller anyways. It doesn't take a whole lot of prompting in order for him to kind of jump in to one of his tales, but just the voice alone and the vocal inflections is enough to entertain me.
And hearing Graham back on the mic.
Make you a little nostalgic? Or?
It does. The three-man weave, the originator.
I felt like screaming into the screen, "This is not your podcast," but I wasn't sure if people would really understand it, so I kind of kept it in pocket. He also sounded a lot less nervous. For those who remember the first portion of Storytime with Adonal, Graham took about 45 minutes to say something that should have taken him 10 seconds because he got so goddamn nervous. The second question was well put.
Yeah, it came off well better. You could see he was starting to get into the comfort zone. Feeling good.
Well, we're bearing the league.
Yeah.
Great question. Some of them were predictable. It makes sense that after guarding Shaq, you'd go through some pretty serious physical breakdowns, but I don't really think I've ever thought about that. I mean, playing against that dude for 48 minutes and having him pound against you, it's got to be difficult as shit.
Yeah, I never thought about the physicality of it. It's kind of like almost an offensive lineman who starts out in the first quarter, doing fine, but by the fourth quarter, you've just been beaten down so much that the guy can do whatever he wants with you.
No doubt. You got to like Adonal's self-awareness for an undersized center like me.
And then he says that everyone else who came in had better skills than him.
Both of which may or may not be factually correct. It's good just hearing it. I went to multiple games where I saw Shaq put his balls in Adonal's mouth. I mean, just shit on him regularly. So it's pretty accurate to say that he had some fairly hard times guarding him.
Also, just envisioning what it would be like to be in Adonal's position and have to go up against these incredible players night in, night out, it would take a lot out of you. If you looked on the schedule, you're like, I got Shaq tonight.
Yeah.
2 days we're going to be traveling, and then I have to deal with Amari.
Yeah.
And then, seeing Duncan on the road. God, that's just miserable.
Surprised you hear Amari in there. Duncan made sense. Shaq made sense. I guess I've just forgotten how dominant Amari used to be.
Yeah, that was a little bit of an interesting call.
Yeah.
Not one I expected to hear.
If your life depended on it, and pick any of the three, Amari, Shaq, or Tim Duncan, play to 21, could you guard them? Could you stop them once in a game to 21?
The only thing I could do would probably be kind of sagging off Duncan, hoping he takes his jumper and misses it. Because Amari and Shaq they're not going to settle for a jumper. They're just going to bang you down low.
Shaq would wear us both as a hat. We could guard him like 2-on-1, and he'd wear us both on each shoulder and just fucking probably dunk us along with the basketball. Probably the same with Amari.
He'd just jump over you.
Yeah, I mean, just immediately. I don't see Duncan taking any jumpers, regardless of how much space you give him. I'm not sure if he's looking for the defensive weakness in your game. He probably just goes straight to the rack.
Yeah, that's going to be an impossible task.
Could you score on any of them?
Only a prayer shot,
Like a hook shot?
Like maybe even throwing it over my head backwards.
Like a check, and then hook it up and hope that it actually goes in there. Yeah, I'm reasonably certain that if I played 21 against any of those three guys and they had some kind of incentive, like they got $5 million, there's no way I could stop them once, and there's no fucking way I could score on either.
To go up against these guys, it's not an enviable task. But Adonal still seemed to enjoy himself talking about it.
There's no question. Well, when's the last time Adonal talked about anything without enjoying himself, man?
That's true.
Props to my boy Adonal. Well, huge fun kicking it, you guys. Hopefully, we'll be kicking it far more regularly and consistently now that we have my boy Robert, the intern producer, involved. I guess we'll find out.
Guess we'll find out. You know we can't be trusted with whatever we tell you we're about to do next week.
That is 100% factually correct, and congratulations on your new title, equipment manager. Before we get out of here, let me drop this quote. An unnamed University of Pittsburgh player is once asked whether he'd graduate within 4 years, and he answered, quote, "I'm going to graduate on time, no matter how long it takes." We love hanging out with you. Hopefully we'll see you soon. Please remember, we can be found on Twitter at NBA Huddle, Gmail, NBAHuddle@gmail.com. Our websites are Let's Go Warriors and NBAHuddle.com, and we can be found on iTunes, where you can also rate us, but only if you're going to give us 5 stars, and subscribe. Thanks for hanging out, you guys.
Your mama got a glass eye with the fish in it.